What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Early Wedge. You might have joined us earlier this week on a Monday or Tuesday or on CBS Sports Network earlier today. By the way, that show is in your YouTube feed over on SportsLine YouTube channel. Thanks for checking us out. Jason Sobel's joining me. Jason, how you doing? Have you seen too much of me in the last 24 hours?
We've seen a lot of each other. I'm just off radio. I did PGA Tour radio for an hour. After this, I've got another one. We are talking golf. We're talking Memorial Tournament. Apparently, a lot of people want to hear what we have to say. I don't know why.
You know what's interesting? Speaking of the radio, Zach Kasenki's in here. So many others as well. Chris Kish, J.K. Johnson, Joseph Boza is in here, among others. But Zach Kasenki says Sia and Sobel need a radio show. And the alliteration I love, Sia and Sobel. By the way, it can be Sobel and Sia. I can be second. I don't care.
No, I'll take it. Alphabetical order. That works.
Can I ask you this, though? Does it have to be a golf show? Couldn't we just have like just a general radio show where we talk about current events and stuff? I mean, and golf?
I feel like we use golf as the jumping off point, but we get into a lot of other things too. Yeah, give us 4 hours drive time every day. I'm in.
I mean, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure CBS executives are listening to this right now, and they're probably already on it. So that's good to hear. Okay, let me ask you a question before we get to the questions in the chat. If you have questions or comments or something you want us to answer from a DFS standpoint or betting or general golf like Jason, one thing that I think people don't take enough advantage of when it comes to you being on shows is just your like insight. And I don't take enough advantage of it either, by the way, in terms of like knowing these players, being on the ground so many times, having been to so many of these courses and covered them for so long. I think that's something, if you all in the chat have a question about that, you can always jump in and we can just see if Jason has an answer for you. But the one thing I wanted to ask you, we've been doing so much content and it's all surrounded, like it starts off, like jump off point is always, is Scotty going to win? Do we bet Scotty? Even if we forget about the betting talk for a second, like, is Scotty going to win? And that makes sense because Rory's not here and Scotty's the best right now. Mm-hmm. I guess my jump off question for you, though, is on Sunday night when the Memorial is over, who's the player that we're most likely to look back Sunday night and be like, man, why weren't we on this guy? Or why didn't we bet this guy? Whatever the case may be. Who's the most likely golfer to sort of fit that description?
So essentially you're asking me, who are we not going to talk about over the next hour that we should have been talking about, and we're trying to preemptively talk about him so we don't forget to talk about him? Okay, I got it.
Not just the next hour, but really the last 2 days. Yes, like there's some names that just don't come up as much. I'm curious who that name is that we might be missing here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's Justin Thomas, who we spoke about on the show earlier today, but you look at it, he did not play well at the PGA Championship, surprised a lot of people because he had a win and a runner-up finish in his last 2 starts, going to a place where he won a major just 8 years ago in 2017, same PGA Championship at Quail Hollow. And so I think that sort of is throwing a lot of people off the scent, that they're saying like, okay, like JT, we understand. I think largely those of us who bet on golf understand that like form is fleeting, and just because you missed a cut 2 weeks ago doesn't mean that like you're playing bad golf. And yet a player like JT misses a cut, and there's so many other players from Scotty to Xander to Hovland to Matsuyama, who I like, Cantlay, who's won a couple times, that you just sort of lose them in the shuffle a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think JT is probably the name for me that on Saturday afternoon is leading by 2, and we're all sitting here going like, how do we spend all these hours working on all this content and talking Scotty and talking Cantlay and talking Morikawa, and just no one ever really got to JT? Yeah, that's certainly a possibility.
So I think JT was the first name that came to mind for me. I think so. Let's just real quick before we go to the questions. Who are the people that everybody is talking about in terms of winning? Like, so it's, people are mentioning Colin Morikawa. Obviously, forget about Scotty for a second. People are mentioning Colin Morikawa. Cantlay is coming up a lot. There was some discussion about Xander, but not a ton. Other than that, like you hear some Decky. I don't know that we're hearing anything. And then you hear some like there's a little bit of Sepp Straka. I mean, not really, but I don't think we're really hearing about Hovland. Don't we think Hovland, speaking of guys that are like bad form and then all of a sudden good form, a guy that's won here before, I think there's different discussions happening regarding around the green play and whether or not, if you're good or not, like you can still succeed here. Hovland feels like a guy that we might be missing too, right?
I feel like I have heard a decent amount of Hovland this week. So yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you that Hovland could play well this week. I'm just disagreeing that I feel like I've probably heard a little bit more Hovland than nothing. Josh says in our chat that he thinks the answer to the question is Xander.
Yeah, that's actually a good answer.
That I was kind of between JT and Xander. I was going to hold off on Xander when we get to the question of who are you looking at this week that could change your mind for the U.S. Open coming up in a few weeks. Xander has been top 10 at the U.S. Open all but 1 year, top 15 every single time he's played a U.S. Open, loves the setup. I need to see just a little something more from Xander this week, but I am very ready to jump on the Xander train for Oakmont in a couple of weeks. And I want to, if there's one player, like if I've got, you've got PGA Tour Live, if I've got a camera on every group in the entire field this week, I'm probably keeping an extra eye on Xander more so than anyone else. By the way, when I work major championships and we're in the trailer for Sirius XM doing whatever coverage we're doing, we actually have cameras where I think this is the future of golf TV, and I don't know how you do it and bring it to people's homes, but I can literally go 3 fairway and push a button and then go 7 green and then go 16 bunker. And I can just see every single camera on the course by pushing a button. I don't know how you can bring that to people's homes, but that's the future, isn't it?
I hope so. Have you ever asked the question, like in those control rooms, have you ever been like, hey, is this something that's coming to TV sets across the nation? Because that would be my next logical thought, right?
No, I don't think so. I don't even know how you would accomplish that, but just for the people out there, just to get the people really mad, because I know people want to see every shot from everybody all the time. Like, it's possible. It's basically what a switcher does. So, I mean, we're going to get very technical, peel the curtain back, but when they're in the truck, when CBS is producing a golf telecast and they're in the truck, the producer and the director will call out what shots they want to see and what cameras. The switcher is the guy who's literally like presses that button and goes from camera 2 at the 7th green to camera 1 at the 8th tee box. And he's the guy that's doing that. You can essentially be your own switcher if you had all these controls at your disposal, but you don't, and it's probably not going to happen like that. I don't know. Maybe they could do it like instead of having, now that I'm thinking it over, like instead of having, it's just like a big strip of buttons. But if you had an app and like that was available on your app and you could just sit there on your phone and go bink, bink and call up each camera, maybe it's more possible than I was thinking a minute ago. Yeah.
That's interesting. All right, let's get into some of the questions here. Again, thanks for being in here. Hit the like button if you could. Always appreciate everybody's support, but there are questions and comments as well. So Joseph is talking about rain in the forecast. I do know that there's, I believe, Jason, rain going on kind of today. And I thought the rain was good. I thought we were going to be okay with the rain tomorrow. Maybe we don't have an answer to that question. But the question with respect to how the first couple of rounds are going to go, the one thing I don't like guessing, it's one thing to guess the wind and things of that nature. The one thing I don't like guessing is whether or not there's going to be a delay or not. I mean, whether or not a rain delay is going to affect a wave advantage, because it's really hard to say, Jason, when that type of weather, we're talking rain specifically, is going to delay around. Do you have any insight on that whatsoever?
As for this week, I hear some rain. By the way, it's called the Curse of Chief Leather Lips, which is an old Native American chief that was in that area, and has sort of cursed the tournament with rain during this week for a long time. I can call this up. This is from Golf Week a couple of years ago. The late Steve DeMeglio, a great friend of mine, wrote a story that Chief Leather Lips. Let's see. Boy, he was going deep into the Wyandotte tribe, and there's executions in 1810. I can't read this whole story to you now, but if you search Steve DeMeglio's day, there is a very specific curse of Chief Leather Lips at the memorial, which people blame for the rain that comes every single year. All of that said, hopefully it holds off this year. What we do see usually is that some rain brings some already thick rough and makes it thicker, and it's the growing season in Ohio. And what you find is that there is a discernible difference. I mean, you can, and I've covered this event 10, 12 times in the past, and you can be out there on a Tuesday, and then it rains on Wednesday and Thursday, and you walk out there Friday, and you're like, "Whoa, what happened?" Like I haven't looked at this spot in the rough in 2 days, and all of a sudden it's like it looks thicker and it looks 2 inches longer than it did the day before, and it can certainly grow that quickly. So keep that in mind. That's a possibility. We talked about it on the Early Wedge show yesterday. First round leaders at this golf tournament over the last few years, we've seen Adam Hadwin, we've seen Davis Riley. There was a 6-way tie a couple years ago that included Mackenzie Hughes and a couple other shorter hitters. I think the course gets longer as the week progresses because we usually see some rain. Usually the rough grows, and it's an evolving kind of thing. I by the way, I've started to see a really liking tournaments that have this sort of effect. I mean, a golf course is a living, breathing thing. It has life to it. It is it has some evolution to it. And so I've really come to like tournaments that make the best players adapt to the conditions for 4 straight days. So you don't just show up Thursday and go, "Oh, well, we got this for the next 3 days. No big deal." That what you see Thursday is not what you're going to see on Sunday. And hopefully that happens this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, we also know that this tournament just tests the full range, right? You know, we talk about tee to green a lot. I don't know about the putter. You know, I think that's something where a bad putter could potentially succeed here, but certainly off the tee, accuracy, approach, and around the green play is going to come in. It did look like, Josh put up the weather there for us, it did look like Friday was going to get a considerable amount of rain. So, I mean, that's, you know, we'll just have to keep an eye on that. And obviously, if that's going to delay things and push people back, we got to check out the Saturday weather. But then you're really kind of getting into the weeds a little bit because we're a couple of days out, obviously. Go ahead, Jason.
I will say, and it says rain, it doesn't say thunderstorms, but the rain there usually comes with some sort of thunder and lightning. So don't be surprised if you do see some delays. By the way, I will not out the person that this was because they are a legend of sports media, not just golf, but all media. But there is an elderly member of the media. This is going back. This is one of my favorite stories. It goes back a few years. But there's a delay, Sia, on a Saturday afternoon. They've halted play. It's been raining for 3 hours. It's still raining. They're not getting on the golf course anytime soon. And so CBS is showing a replay from the previous year where Tiger Woods is winning the golf tournament. If you're not showing live golf, you might as well show Tiger winning a golf tournament. That's pretty good too. And so as we're all sitting in the media center and everyone's just kind of doing their thing and eating a fourth lunch and doing whatever else you do during weather delays, all of a sudden Tiger is chipped in on the Sunday from the previous year. And this said media member stands up from his seat and goes, "Oh my gosh." And we all look at him, we go, "Not today, not live, not playing." The man's an absolute legend. He's got me by about 40 years right now. So we certainly won't criticize him publicly, but man, was that funny.
Yeah, there's always some great stories there from Jason Sobel. That is hilarious. We've seen, like, you know, this isn't like an attack on the elderly, but like there's some people who like haven't seen some of the technology. This is like 10, 15 years ago where it's like DVR is new to them and things of that nature. And it's you can get caught there if you're not accustomed to the technology, for sure. Go ahead.
I will still, there's, you know, the guys at my club, there's an older group of guys that call it the Legends game. They'll go out at my club at 8 in the morning and finish for lunch. They'll have a bowl of soup with their lunch when it's 90 degrees out here in Orlando. But during especially December, when there's not as much golf on TV and Golf Channel will show some reruns of the best tournaments of the whole year and whatever else is going on, these guys will be sitting there eating lunch and they'll go, "Whoa, did you see that?" And I'll just walk by their table and go, "That was in May, guys, 8 months ago," and just keep going.
That's good stuff. All right, let's get to some other questions. J.K. Johnson says, "What did we decide to do with Ludwig?" Well, we didn't decide to do much, right, Jason? I mean, I don't think either of us are on Ludwig. I think from a DFS standpoint, he's at least interesting because his ownership is pretty low. I'm still not willing to play him. If I'm going to get ownership leverage somewhere, Jason, it's going to be with another person, maybe down the board that's even less than 9,300. That's not getting a lot. For example, it doesn't look like Straka is getting a lot of attention. There's guys like Russell Henley, not getting a lot of Tony Finau, Sung J M. I'd rather just go down and pay for those guys, even though they're not the caliber Ludwig is. I just don't like Ludwig's form. Your thoughts on Ludwig?
Yeah, look, he is. I still believe he's a generational talent. For as good as you think John Rahm is, and I know he's been back and forth since moving to Live Golf, but I do think he's a top 5 player in the world. I think Ludwig that's his floor, is John Rahm. I think he could be even better than John Rahm has been over the last 10 years in professional golf. That said, it pains me because I like him so much. I think he's a really nice guy. I think he's great for the game. I just don't see it happening for Oberg this week. I like him better at Oakmont 2 weeks from now than this week. I think he tends to play. I mean, we're talking 6 major championships so far, but tends to play some really good golf at the majors for what we've seen so far. I think he could use one more just decent one this week, kind of ramping up towards Oakmont in a couple weeks. But yeah, Oberg's not going to make my card and probably won't make any of my lineups this week.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But again, if you want to be contrarian in DFS, I do think, and you can ask DFS questions too, of course, I do think this is a week to, if you want to play Scotty, that's great. But I think it's really a good week to maybe play some lineups without him, but more importantly, play some Scotty lineups, but be cognizant of who the popular players are. And we can discuss that later on in the show. I mean, obviously guys like Bud Cauley or Ryan Gerard, I can skip down to that 6K range later and talk to you about some of the guys that are going to be really popular there. But just know who the popular players are going to be. Ludwig, interesting, at least in DFS. All right, we got way more questions to get to from Jack George and Walker Underwood and Joseph Boza and so many others. We're going to do it right after we hear a message from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, we're back on the early wedge. I'm just scanning through some of these 6K guys in DFS that I think are going to be pretty popular. Bud Cauley, for sure. I mean, he's probably going to be greater than 10%, which in that range is pretty popular. I think Seabez might get some popularity, which certainly makes sense at 6,900. Ryan Gerard picking up a little bit. I think we had a question about Tom Hoge, which we may as well get to right now because I believe he's somewhere in that, tucked away in that 6K range. I'm not a fan of Tom Hoge this week. Any thoughts on him?
Probably more a fan of him than I am the Ryan Gerard play, or even maybe even Bud Cauley. I like Hoge. I think Hoge, when he gets hot with the irons are usually pretty good. He can play some good golf. This is a week when you don't have to putt above average. You don't have to be a stroke gained every round with your flat stick to be in contention. You can putt dead average and still be pretty good. Tom Hoge, well, he can putt average once in a while if he's got his flat stick working. So average might be the ceiling, but that's still okay. I don't mind Tom Hoge this week.
He had a nice run early in the year with the putter, and frankly, a nice run with the approach play, and it's really tailed off over the last 4 or 5 tournaments. But like we always say, I mean, I don't know that he's the greatest course fit, One-Eyed Willie, who asked the question. Thank you for that. But I do think if he finds his approach play and the short game is there, which it can be, I think he's an okay play. Go ahead.
If we're still talking guys in the 6,000s, I'll give you a quick rundown kind of guys that I'm looking at. Don't mind Justin Rose, who has some history. He was sick/injured a couple of weeks ago, so that doesn't help. I've always thought, for the last 3 years, I've thought Sahith Theegala was going to win the Memorial Tournament. Things are not good right now. He withdrew a few weeks ago. I would stay away, but just keep him on your radar for future additions at Muirfield Village, because I do think his skill set sets up well. Cameron Young's starting to play some good golf. I'm not quite sure I want to jump into the deep end there, but he's starting to play some better golf. I don't mind Thomas Dietrich. I don't mind Ryan Fox. All decent course fits. Hoge at 64. I didn't realize he was that low. So Hoge at 64 gets me a little interested. Cam Davis always gets me interested when he's a cheap play in a signature event, just because the ceiling is always high. You never know what you're going to get with Cam Davis, but I can get behind that one. That's probably about as low as I'll go this week.
Give me your thoughts real quick on Nick Taylor. I mean, it's not like he's striking it super well, but he's been okay, some decent finishing positions lately. But he's made, the last 2 times he's been here, he's made both cuts. I just feel like the short game is good enough and the approach play can sometimes really spike? No, I'm selling it and it's not working.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah. He doesn't get me too excited. The only thing that gives me optimism about Nick Taylor is that Adam Hadwin, who's a obviously good friend of his, but also like a fairly correlating player to him, finished third place last year. So if Hadwin can do it, Taylor can do it. But Taylor's not there for me.
All right. Let's get to another question. This one not really related to the Memorial, more related to the FedEx Cup playoffs. Do you have any reaction to the breaking news that broke, I guess, last night or maybe early this morning? I think it was last night, about the Tour Championship and how they're doing the actual Tour Championship in the FedEx Cup playoffs.
Yeah. So I think it's the lesser of all evils. Look, the players didn't like the staggered scoring start. Most fans didn't like the staggered scoring. It was weird. I understand it. I know what the PGA Tour was trying to do. They're like, hey, it's playoffs, but if you're Scotty Scheffler and you're ranked number 1, you should get a little bit of a bump somehow. And how do we do that? We don't have home field advantage in our sport. So what do we do? And I give them a little credit for at least trying something. I give them more credit for dumping it. A lot of people are calling for match play. Look, match play to me, Sia, is one of these deals where every fan says they love match play until match play actually happens. And unless you get Scotty and Rory each making 9 birdies in a final match where it's absolute fireworks, it never lives up to the hype. It never lives up to the billing. Guys, trust me, if it's Andrew Novak and Mac Hughes playing in a match play final for $10 million on a Sunday afternoon, you're not turning your television on for 4 hours and watching that whole thing. You're just not. The other thing I always try to tell people is that this is not just about you. I get that you're a fan and you think that you're the number one priority. This is about the sponsor. This is about the TV rights holders. It's about the players themselves. How do we appease everybody out there? This is probably the best way. Hey, let's play 72 holes and whoever shoots the lowest score wins. I don't know. That seems like a good idea. So again, is it the perfect conclusion to the season to wrap up not only the best player of the year, but the best player for the final week? I don't know, but it probably beats every other idea.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. I am curious to see how this all plays out. We have Josh in here just kind of putting up what the meaningful changes are for the Tour Championship. And of course, it's the elimination of starting strokes, adjustment to course setup, which we'll just kind of have to wait and see on that, and the toughest tournament to qualify for, which, I mean, I don't, is that a change? I mean,
no, that's the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Beef that up. I will say there aren't very many books that still have FedEx Cup odds, winner odds listed. If you can find them, I think they're on Caesars still. Go check them out, because as far as I can tell from yesterday, they haven't been adjusted. I think there's a lot more probability for a long shot to win right now than there was before. Before, if Scotty Scheffler starts with a 2-shot lead over Rory McIlroy and he's up 2 on the next play, like, you're not going to beat them. That Scotty is a rightful plus 120 going into that, and he's probably going to win it. That said, now everybody's starting at 0. And Scotty has not played his best golf at East Lake. And maybe you look at a guy like Xander Schauffele, who has played well there and should have more gas in the tank after missing 2 months of the season. If he gets into the top 30, he'd go out there and win the FedEx Cup title pretty easily.
Fair enough. Jack George asking, how do you guys feel about taking the tournament matchup of Denny McCarthy versus Sungjae and Berger? Versus Sungjae, and Berger versus Siwoo, taking Denny and Berger because they tee off early tomorrow and will avoid the rain. I mean, I'm not worried about the rain part. Do you happen to like Denny over Sungjae or Berger over Siwoo? I don't particularly like either.
Denny over Sungjae and Siwoo over Berger. I know you like Siwoo as well.
Yeah.
I like Berger. Berger's fallen off the last couple of weeks. We've seen him play some really good golf. He almost looks like a guy right now. And I wrote it in my BetMGM preview this week that this is the time of year, and I get it. Look, we would all wish we were PGA Tour players playing in signature events and major championships. We're all like, man, what a life. They travel around the world. They play golf for big money. Not that they're complaining, but this is the time of year when these guys just start feeling the fatigue. It doesn't matter how well you eat. Doesn't matter if you go back and get 10 hours of sleep every night. Doesn't matter if you work out. You just at some point hit a wall, whether you're an elite level player, whether you're a guy that's played 15 times already, you just hit a wall. It looks like, just based on the scores and the results, Daniel Berger might be hitting that wall right now. I do like him for 3 weeks from now. I've had him targeted for the Travelers Championship for a while now. He will be one of my favorite plays on that board, but I'm going to stay away a little bit this week. I think I mentioned him over somebody on our early Wedge show, maybe Spieth, for a matchup play. So, I mean, it's not hatred towards Berger, but it just looks like he's hitting that wall a little bit. And again, this is what we were talking about at the beginning, like knowing the players themselves. So you can look at all the data, look at the analytics, look at all the numbers. But when you look at the players themselves and try to figure out, like, who's got some momentum right now, who's feeling it. Xander Schauffele, I just mentioned, as far as the FedEx Cup later this year, when everyone else is dead tired, Xander's going to have some gas in the tank because he didn't play from early January till early March. And I've talked with him about that. Xander said, yeah, that's the one thing I'm really looking forward to, is the fact that later this year, I'm going to be feeling good when nobody else is. So keep that in mind, file it away, and continue to look at the players. That's my advice. Continue to look at the guys who just, the course works for them, and it looks like they should play well, but there's just something that's not quite right now.
It's interesting what you're saying about Xander, because so there's two things happening with his statement to you about, hey, I'm looking forward to later in the season. And one is that it's probably true that what you're saying is right, that a lot of people are going to be more gassed out and he's going to be a little bit more fresh. But the fact that he's thinking that as well, the fact that he's like articulating it, to me means that he's going to have like a mindset, maybe a placebo effect, whatever it is, to actually think he's going to play better, which I think could feed into him actually playing better.
Here's a good story for you. It was either the year before or the year after Justin Rose won the U.S. Open at Marriott. It was either 2012 or 2014. I can't remember which, but Justin Rose, I believe, had a shoulder surgery. There was this run of, for whatever reason, the European players. I think Poulter started it with his caddy, and then Rose was doing it, a few of the other guys. They would like get up there and mark their ball, and their caddy might be raking a bunker 50 yards away, and they'd like chuck the ball 50 yards. And these guys aren't used to, like, they didn't grow up playing baseball or anything, so the arm strength isn't great. And a couple of these guys like hurt their arms. I never got confirmation, but I'm pretty sure that Justin Rose hurt his shoulder throwing his golf ball back to his caddy on one of those greens. That said, he missed like 2 or 3 months of the season, came back, took him a little while to get back into it. Once he did, by the end of the summer, he was playing the best golf of anybody. And I remember talking to him about it, and he goes, look, I didn't want to miss all that time, but it was a blessing in disguise because I feel fresh and ready to go right now in July, August, September, when most of these guys are running on fumes. So again, just there's some history to this, and there's some reason why some of these players understand that when this happens, good things might still come of it later in the year.
Very interesting. Walker Underwood says, I like Lowry a bit this weekend, like you, Sobel, but what's with the 13 over par in round 4 last year at the Memorial? Talk to me about Lowry. You talked about him, I think, on the network show. You had him as a top 20, is that right?
Yes.
All right.
I'm going for a top 20. I think I might actually play him for a top 10 as well. Lowry is a guy that I put Matt Fitzpatrick in this boat as well. They've got to be interested in that week. And what I mean is, the golf course has to appeal to them. They have to kind of be of the right mindset. And Shane, the last 2 tournaments that he's played are a perfect example of this. 3 weeks ago, we saw him at Philly Cricket Club. Really liked the golf course. He was in good spirits. He wound up not winning, playing in the final pairing with Sepp Straka and finishing runner-up, but had a really good week because you could just tell, like, he was into it. He liked it. He wanted to be there. Quail Hollow, he's never liked that golf course. He's never been a big fan of it. He got there. He didn't like the weather. He didn't like the setup. He didn't get a ruling when his ball looked like it was embedded. It was just, there was a lot of stuff going on. You could just tell he wasn't going to play his best golf. I think he likes it at Muirfield Village. Again, the stats don't necessarily show it. Only 1 career top 10. And yes, that 13 over last year is really strange. All I'd say to that is, Tiger Woods has won more tournaments at Muirfield Village than anybody. He shot 85 there once. Happens.
We got a lot of
Billy Horschel shot 84. He wound up winning a few years later.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's the golf experience. I feel like we've got you've got all this special insight. I feel like we got a lot of strokes gained mindset stuff going on that, listen, I think that is actually a really important part of this that we're not necessarily privy to. So more information, the better. Good question, Walker Underwood. Yeah, I think I might include Lowry in some DFS lineups. His price is interesting. I mean, it's very hard to build lineups. He is 8,700. That range is really hard to build lineups if you are taking Scotty Scheffler. If you're taking Scotty Scheffler, you can add 2 6K guys to that lineup. And I know that question wasn't about DFS, but I just want to point it out. If you take Scotty Scheffler and you put like Cauley and some other random 6K guy in there, you're still only going to be left in the low 7K range. Or maybe the high 6K range, which leaves you 3 players, and it's just hard to get back up there. So I think in the non-Scotty lineups, I think Lowry is really interesting. The Scotty lineups, it's really hard to build, and that's probably a good thing. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out because on the DFS show, the first thing I did was try to build Scotty lineups, and I'm like, whoa, this is really hard. Jack George.
It should be, like you said, it should be really hard.
Should be really hard.
I'm okay with that.
100% true. I do want to say, by the way, if you're watching us on Twitter, 1, thank you. And 2, if you want to ask a question or make a comment, come over to the SportsLine YouTube channel. This is the Early Wedge. We also have the Early Edge on here as well. But come over to the SportsLine YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. That's free to do, of course, and just get in the chat and say hello. And the more the merrier for sure, because I noticed there's a lot of people watching us on Twitter, but you can always come over to this SportsLine YouTube page and say hello. All right, let's go to the next question. Jack George, a couple more bets I would love your opinion on. This one's really interesting, and I kind of like it. Noren top Nordic at plus 260. I will tell you that's plus 280 in some places. The reason I know that, and I just double checked, it's a bet that I was considering. So we'll get to the other bet in a second. So the other 2 in there are Ludwig and Victor Hovland. The reason I think this is interesting, I don't know, maybe I'd want the number to be closer to plus 280 than plus 260, Jason, but Noren is starting to come on, and course fit-wise, he feels like he's solid here. So if Ludwig and Victor just don't have, it's asking a lot for both of them to not play well. I could see one of them really tanking. I don't know about both of them. I think that's my issue, but I think Noren is a really clever play. Maybe not in this market, but in general.
So, Sia, I was this close to putting top Nordic in our show, the Early Wedge, yesterday, but it wasn't going to be Alex Noren. Victor Hovland's at, I think, plus 170.
Yeah, it's a big number.
Essentially, what's a 3-ball matchup?
Mm-hmm.
I think Hovland, as the champion from 2 years ago, who plays his mid and long irons really well, I think Hovland's due for a really good week this week. He's a guy that I watched a lot at the PGA Championship. I don't know if you remember me telling you, but I had this brief moment of what I thought was clarity on Tuesday or Wednesday morning of that week where I go, Victor Hovland's going to win this week. I just figured it out. And 2 minutes later, I was like, no, he's not. But within those 2 minutes, I made a whole bunch of bets. So I had a lot of Victor Hovland investment before I talked myself out of it. So I watched a lot of Victor playing, and it was sort of one of those, every time he took 2 steps forward, he'd take 1 step back and never quite gained any momentum. But he's not playing bad golf right now. I like Hovland on this golf course, so I don't mind going top Nordic. Just Noren's not my favorite Nordic. That said, for Jack, just because I'm not trying to be argumentative here, I absolutely love the Novak over Glover play. Glover has shown to be a course horse, and what I mean by that is that when he plays a place well, he usually plays it well every year, and when he doesn't, he really doesn't. And when I see one top 25, I think that's in 20 years, he corrected, but in 20 years of playing the Memorial, that just shows me that he is not going to figure it out this week, that he doesn't like this golf course. He's probably only here because it's a signature event, and you don't want to give up a signature event and not go play, but I can't imagine Glover does much this week over, especially over Novak.
Yeah, I like that look as well. By the way, on the Early Wedge, and you were around when I did this right before the show started. I pulled a matchup as well. I put it out on CBS Sports Network, but I pulled it from the Wedge. I had 2 in there. Probably could have added this one, but I had Hovland over Ludwig in a tournament matchup at minus 110. So again, more credence to, I don't know about the Noren top Nordic play necessarily, but more credence to maybe Hovland being a pretty good number in that market, but also against Ludwig in particular. All right, let's get to the next question. Rick G has an LPGA inquiry. Any word on El Vu? I'm not exactly sure who that is in terms of apparently some sort of health issue. I know you were talking about the LPGA tournament yesterday on the Wedge.
Yeah. Lilia Vu, former major champion. She was out for a while last year. I don't know anything about the injury right now. She's still ranked 6th in the world, but you look at what she's done so far this year. She was runner-up at the Ford Championship. Other than that, she has not been better than 29th place in 6 total starts this year. Her last 3 have been missed cut, 78th missed cut. She will not be anywhere close to my betting card this week, whether it's injury, lingering injury, after effects of it, whatever, just still trying to find her game. She is not quite there. I can go over some of my U.S. Women's Open
real quick
picks if you'd like. And I'm going to read right down from my preview at betmgm.com. You can go to my Twitter feed at Jason Sobel Golf. And if you want some more insight on some of these players, but I'm going to start with Hyoju Kim at 22-1. She's the player that, remember a few weeks ago, Sia, I said there's a player in an LET event who's ranked top 10 in the world, and nobody else at this LET event is any good at all. She was 3-1 that week, which I don't normally bet players at 3-1 in the outright market, but this was like Scotty playing in a college event. I mean, this was really like a huge discrepancy between her and the rest of the field. She wound up winning that. I got a bunch of buddies on that one. I didn't talk about it much on the show because I just didn't see it until Wednesday evening. So I didn't really know about it until late, but she's got wins on the LPGA and the LET, top 20 in 21 of her last 25 majors, including a playoff loss at the Chevron just last month. So I really like her a lot. And by the way, before I get to this, Nelly Korda, 2 top 10s, no wins at this golf tournament. Lydia Ko, 2 top 10s, no wins. Minjee Lee does have a win, but if you're looking at the biggest name players, Gino Titakun has only played 3 U.S. Women's Opens, 1 top 10, her first one last year. The best players aren't necessarily the best plays at this one. Complete difference from what I'm expecting at Oakmont in a few weeks on the men's side. I think that we're going to see a leaderboard that's Scotty, Bryson, Rahm, and Xander. But this week, I think we're due for a bunch of different names on this board. Yulimi No has played really well this year, ranked 5th in strokes gained total. She's at 33-1. Arya Jutanagarn, another one who's in that playoff, 5-player playoff at the Chevron. She's got 2 major wins already. She's been top 6 in all 3 of her most recent starts. Alim Kim, I thought would be top 10 on the odds board. She's tied for 25th instead at 50-1. She's got a major championship. In fact, she won this major 5 years ago when nobody knew who she was. And now she's playing some really good golf, ranks 10th in strokes gained total and 10th in driving distance, which should help at Erin Hills. Real quick, Lynn Grant, who's starting to play some better golf. She was top 5 her last start. Ingrid Lindblad, I really like her at 90-1. She's a rookie on tour, already has a win this year. She was a #1 amateur in the world not very long ago. Patty Tavatanakit has finishes of 7th or better in all 5 majors since 2021. Nana Kurtz-Madsen is 150-1. She hits it a long way. Gabby Ruffles is 250-1. If the wind kicks up at Erin Hills, she's an Aussie that likes playing in the wind. And Madeline Sagstrom, also 250-1. She has a win at the match play already this year. Again, big numbers for those last 3 players.
The floodgates open on the LPGA thanks to Jason Sobel. Bet you didn't think you were getting all that. That is some really good stuff. Maybe pick out a couple of names. And again, you can follow Jason's stuff at betmgm.com and at Jason Sobel Golf, along with the early wedge, of course. Chris Kish says, who are some cheap pivots off of Cauley and Gerard that can allow room for Scotty? Thanks for the show, guys. Thank you, Chris. Interesting. I do think Cauley is going to be like that guy. There are some guys that are also getting some ownership. Like it does look like Seabez is getting some ownership, not as high as Cauley. Michael Kim is getting some ownership, and I think we have a question about him too. Kim is interesting. He had a couple of tournaments where it didn't look so good, but he rebounded at the Charles Schwab Challenge last week. I don't see a lot of history here for Michael Kim, which could be sort of a strike against him, but I think there's plenty of pivots. I don't know that Sahith is one of those. I know you mentioned him earlier, but I think Justin Rose is interesting. Seabez. I think Mackenzie Hughes is not going to get any ownership, but I don't think he's a terrible course fit here, especially with the short game coming into play here. I think Michael Kim, I think Eric Cole, who we have a question about, is really interesting. And I did mention Nick Taylor. Anybody that I just said, Jason, that you love, or anybody that I'm leaving out?
No, I think I was going to pick the three guys that were the only three you didn't mention from that range.
Go ahead.
I like Taylor Pendrith, who fits this golf course. And all three of these guys are going to be, I'm profiling here. I'm looking for big, brawny dudes, long hitters, got some forearms, can mash it out of the rough. So Taylor Pendrith is the first name on there. He's 7,300. Davis Thompson, who's really disappointed me this year. I thought he was going to be a guy that makes a run at the U.S. Ryder Cup team. He's only got one top 10 so far this year, but I still think he's really talented. He's at 7,000. And then we're taking chances at this price point anyway. Cameron Young is 6,700. He's starting to play some decent golf. I mean, it's not the Cameron Young of 2 or 3 years ago, but it's getting there a little bit. I think that's a really good price for him. I think he makes the cut, and from there at 6,700, the rest is kind of gravy. We know he can make some birdies, hitting it better off the tee right now. Yeah, I like him over most other players in that mid 6,000 range.
Yeah, we also have Tom O and Stephen Dion talking about Eric Cole. You know, the one thing about him that I don't love is the lack of accuracy, but he's played here twice, as far as I can tell, T45 and T24. Stephen Dion is mentioning he sees Eric Cole in a matchup against Lucas Glover. I assume that's a round one matchup, but gosh, I kind of love that. It doesn't feel like it's gone sideways for Eric Cole yet. It certainly can, but I love how he's been playing lately. Your thoughts on Eric Cole?
8 straight made cuts. He was an outright play of mine last week at Colonial. Obviously, that didn't happen, but he didn't play bad golf, especially on the weekend. I don't mind it. The guy loves playing golf. And again, this goes back to what I was saying about the fatigue setting in this time of year. The guys were like, oh, I got to go to Memorial and I got to go try to find something this week. Those are the guys you want. You want the guys that are like, how cool is this? I get to go play golf this week and I get to go play. Like, that's Eric Cole. Eric Cole would be out playing golf somewhere if he didn't get into this field. He would be playing golf on his week off. That's what he does. And so I love the fact that when everyone else is getting tired, he should be a good play. And by the way, Stephen Dion put in the chat, Eric Cole versus Lucas Glover, like same. We had, who do we have? Novak against Glover before, Cole against Glover. Yeah, I'll go for all of those.
Yeah, I almost like Cole better because if memory serves, Novak hasn't played Muirfield before. Is that right? I mean, I'll double check that, but I know Cole has.
He's not.
Yeah,
he's
so not. That for a round one matchup, I'd prefer if I get the choice and it's a similar number, I prefer the guy that's also playing well that's actually played here before, even though Novak is certainly the better talent. All right. Any love for Eric Cole? So, Tom, we answered that question. Thank you for the question. Since you guys mentioned Dietrich, his first round matchup is Homa at -110 each side. Too good to be true. I mean, listen, Homa's kind of been off and on lately. It's not the same Homa from a couple of months ago where he was just an automatic fade. I don't really have an opinion on that, Jason, but you did mention Dietrich. Do you like Dietrich in this matchup?
Yeah. I mean, if I have to pick it, I mean, there's probably other matchups I like more. But if you told me like, hey, I'm handing you a ticket for this matchup and you have to fill it out with one of two names, I'm definitely taking Dietrich over Homa here. Look, Homa's struggling with his game. We never know what to expect on a day-to-day basis. If you're struggling with your game, things are not going to go well. They can go south in a hurry at Muirfield Village.
I will say this, just from watching Homa the last couple of tournaments, the finishing positions haven't been great, but I've seen light at the end of the tunnel for Max Homa, and he is coming to a place where he's not, top 10ing, but he's certainly finishing pretty well. So if the vibes are high for Max Homa, which again, strokes gain mindset, not sure about that, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if he makes the cut and finishes, top 35. I don't know what that says about a round one matchup, but just throwing that out there. Walker Underwood, better fade, top 20. Matsuyama, JT, Connor Straka. Love the opinions and insight. Thank you, gents. Oh, well, thank you for saying thank you. No need to. Let's see. Matsuyama, JT, Connor Straka. Bet or fade for top 20. So let's just go down the list. Matsuyama, bet or fade for top 20.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's my favorite outright on the board, so I'll take him for a top 20. In fact, I've done that already. So yeah, absolutely. Hideki, you with me on that?
Yeah, I think I am with you on that. And of course, we don't have the numbers, but we're just kind of generally talking about it. JT, better fade.
Not really a fade, but it's probably not a bet. There's just better numbers that I can find for top 20s. JT's got a little too much range in that ceiling to floor right now for me to trust him. But I mean, I don't mind it. If you can find what he's probably about plus 105, plus 110 for a top 20 this week.
You know, that ceiling and floor conversation, I think for him, I'd almost rather bet him at a much bigger number at like plus, at like a top 10, for example, or even a top 5 and just kind of like lower my unit size and try to win there.
I was way off, by the way. JT minus 165 for a top 20 fade. Yeah, no, that's I'm
for sure.
I'm not going there with that number.
Connor's top 20. So I think the Connor's conversation is interesting because yes, his form is great, but he's always been this guy for the most part, and he hasn't really finished well here. I think he's okay for a top 20. I'm not in love with it.
I like Corey Connors a lot this week. I'm going to go on my rant that I did on the early wedge yesterday, Sia, but
yes,
you've heard this already, and this applies for Tommy Fleetwood as well. What are we trying to do here? What are the books doing us? Like, if you didn't know anything about golf betting, and I said, okay, Corey Connors has 2 career wins, both at the Valero Texas Open in 203 career starts. What do you think his odds are this week? You'd say, I don't know. He wins on a rate of 1 in 100, so I guess his odds are about 100 to 1. No, they're 28 to 1 in the outright market this week. That is pure thievery from the books. They'll probably go out and win. Like I said, I like him, but how on earth do you ever bet Tommy Fleetwood at 20 to 1 or Corey Connors at 28 to 1 over Hideki Matsuyama at 35 to 1? I mean, there's just like no way you can possibly do that. So yes, I like Connors. I'll play Connors for a top 20, but he's still, I'm just mad. It has nothing to do with Corey. It's not his fault. I'm just mad at the fact that the books won't give us a decent number on him.
Straka is an interesting one. Top 20, Josh is dialed in. He's letting us know it's plus 110 for a top 20 there. He's got good history here as well. I will say when I looked at his Muirfield history and his metrics, the around the green play has been a problem that he's been able to overcome because he's just such a good ball striker and he's just kind of a winner in general. I don't mind this at all. I mean, the plus money on Straka top 20 makes a lot of sense. This is a guy that is not going to beat Scotty most likely, but this is a guy that could top 5 this tournament.
Yeah, no, I like Straka a lot. He's playing some great golf this year. Good ball striker, good for this golf course. The one thing with Sepp that you have to remember, and again, I'm targeting the guys who are longer hitters this week. It's a big golf course. Sepp is a guy that fools a lot of people, sort of in the same way that JT might not be a great example. Maybe Matt Fitzpatrick is a good example. Like on the other side, Matt Fitzpatrick is like this small guy, so I think people look at him and go, he doesn't hit it anywhere. It's like, no, he's really long off the tee. Sepp is the opposite. Sepp's like this big dude who hits it in the fairway and doesn't hit it very long and just kind of plods his way around. That said, yeah, I do like Sepp this week. Just remember what you're getting with Sepp. I think a lot of times people just blindly look at Sepp Straka and say, man, big dude, they call him the Ox. He mashes it, and he really doesn't.
He does look like he would mash it, and he totally doesn't. All right, let's see. How do you guys feel about Spawn here? The ball striking has been great, but doesn't necessarily have great history here. Was history here, I don't know about pre-2020, but I think he had a 30th, like in 2023, which is fine, especially for a 2023 JJ Spawn. So I think the history here is fine. First of all, as far as JJ Spawn is concerned, I mean, anything pre-2024, I'm not really concerned about because JJ Spawn's a much different player. With that said, I think he's a great option here. What is he, 7,500, something like that? I think Spawn, I'm double checking that price, 7,500. I think Spawn is so underrated in general. And for the record, I was a guy that maybe like 12 months ago was saying the exact opposite thing. I didn't really respect his game. I didn't think he could win or contend. I think Spawn does everything right. The around the green play can sometimes be choppy for him. Other than that, iron play is good. The long iron play specifically with Spawn is good. Pretty good off the tee. What are your thoughts?
I like Spawn when he's not playing against the best players. And I know the Players' Championship result, losing in a playoff will, sort of negate a lot of what I'm about to say. But I feel like he's a nervy dude who, when he's playing against the best players and with the best players in the world, feels like a little imposter syndrome almost. I don't know that I'd ever say this to his face. Super nice guy, but, has this sense of like do I really belong? And he's kind of talked about that publicly a little bit. And I don't get the sense that he has full confidence in himself. And for that reason, I don't really have full confidence in him. And I don't necessarily want to bet on him. And in a little same respect, I feel that way about Russell Henley. Remember, Russell Henley won the API and afterwards said, man, I was so nervous over those last couple of 4-footers. And I'm like, what? Like, they're 4-footers. You're supposed to go, yeah, I'm really good. I'm one of the top 10 players in the world. It was a 4-footer. And so I hit it in the middle of the hole and I went and got my trophy. You're not supposed to talk about how nervous you were over these things. So the guys who are less confident about themselves are the guys who I'm less confident in when I bet them. And Spawn is not a guy that I'll necessarily play in bigger tournaments. You give me a Valero Texas Open, you give me, where might he play later this year? Like a 3M Open. I think he's played pretty well there. One of those kind of places, like, JJ's a good player. And on the right day, I usually targeted him before this past year when he started playing better at a Pebble Beach kind of event before it became a signature, like West Coast. He's a West Coast guy, can putt on Poe pretty well, plays well in those, kind of like the damp air that we see in the first couple months of the year. But other than that, I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of his game. And by the way, at Muirfield Village, 30th last year. Before that, 2 missed cuts in the WD.
Fair enough. So 2 missed cuts in the WD, but that was, what years were those? Like, that was pre-2020, right?
Yes.
Because
2017, 18, 19.
Spawn was dealing with an illness back then too, that he didn't even really know what it was. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I mean, there was some things going on with Spawn. I remember even during COVID, he played on the Outlaw Tour a tournament or two. And I remember that because I put him in my DFS lineup because I was so excited I could play DFS Outlaw Tour style. And I was like, oh, JJ Spawn, I'm betting him outright too. And he had a really, really poor tournament. I don't even know if he made the cut. And I was like, what is going on here? He's like a PGA guy. And then I learned later, Jason, again, I'm not reporting this, but that there was something going on health-wise that he had to overcome, and now he's kind of there.
I'll give you a little more of a hint here. And this, again, just stuff that we can look for, and we're trying to make inferences. I don't know for sure, and maybe I'm off on this, but JJ withdrew from this event in 2017, played 2018, 2019, missed the cut both years, and then didn't play for 4 years, came back in 2023. And you'd ask yourself, why did he come back? Well, the reason he came back is because it became a signature event, and you kind of feel like, well, I kind of have to come back because I got a chance of making some money this week. My guess is if it wasn't a signature event, he wouldn't come back and play, and I don't want to target the guys who ordinarily wouldn't be playing this event if it was just another PGA Tour event anyway. And so, again, just a little insight. I could be wrong about all of that. Maybe he just didn't play for his kids were on spring break or summer break, and that's why he didn't play. But to me, I always like looking, especially at these signature events, at the guys who didn't play them, those courses, those tournaments, when they weren't signature events. Usually doesn't bode well once they are. By the way, I will give you a guy. I feel like I'm being very negative here with trying to fade a bunch of these players. There's always a guy who later in the week kind of pops up to me as a player that I hadn't really thought of when I made all my picks and predictions and wrote my preview. Ben On is a name that we haven't mentioned at all, Sia. Has a pretty good course history here. He's playing decent enough golf recently. I can see Ben On having a really nice week.
Okay, fair enough. By the way, Spawn and Aaron Rye in that mid 7K range, in most of the 7K range, those are the two most popular guys. So just FYI on that. Rye probably going to be a touch more popular, but Spawn's certainly getting some ownership. Go ahead, Jason.
By the way, I want to address Michael Byrne just put one in the chat and said, talking about me. This is the same guy who said to stay away from Sam Stevens because his family travels. Not what I said. Here's what I said. Hey, I'm not going to play. It's just, hey, long term, this is a guy I've seen other players, whether it's Tony Finau or Jason Day. Aaron Baddeley is a great example. When you've got a caravan of 12 suitcases and you're traveling week to week to week, after a while, that can wear on you. Doesn't mean that, hey, this week he won't play well, so don't play him. That's not the gist of this. The gist is long-term, I'm just giving you some insight into play, and maybe it won't affect Sam Stevens whatsoever, and he'll have 1 million kids and he'll have 100 PGA Tour titles and he'll play great while doing it. but I can tell you that it's affected a lot of other players adversely over the years. And so just something to watch out for.
The idea of having a big family or traveling with your family or whatever the case may be, and having that be a distraction is like a very obvious thing, right? And it's like whether it's golf or the quarterback or your career is in some other thing that's not sports related. Like it does feel like it could be a distraction. So I think it's worthy of pointing out. I don't know how Tony Finau does it. He's obviously a great dad. I don't know how he juggles all these things and maintains a just great form on the golf course. But some people can do it. But certainly we've seen Tony Finau be inconsistent where we're not expecting that. So I don't know. Maybe that plays in, up for others to decide. The Stephen Dion says that Cole versus Glover was a full tourney. Stephen, let us know what book you found that out. I'm curious because I really like that bet. Eric Cole over minus 120 over Lucas Glover. You guys don't usually look at first round top 10, but Scotty getting plus 125 here. Isn't that a layup? That's a good number. I don't do first round top 10, but I don't hate that. Plus 125 for Scotty.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's only a 72 person field. Like Scotty's probably competing among 30 guys, I would imagine, to like be inside the top 10. And he's clearly the best player.
Yeah. I will say it's usually not a real low number. So I like it better than if someone's got to shoot 62 for the first round lead and the top 10 is all going to be 66 or better. That's not what this tournament is. So if it's just like 2 or 3 under par, usually gets you in the top 10. I like Scotty better for that. So sure.
Jack George says, thoughts on Lowry over Ludwig for the tourney. Any thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah. You like it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really like it.
Lowry over Griffin round 1. Any thoughts there?
I usually, and this isn't like a rule of thumb or anything. It's just kind of, case by case basis, but I usually like players, especially when they win for the first time. I know Griffin had the win with Novak at the Zurich, but when a player wins, I will stick with them for a round or two the next week, and at some point you hit the wall. Because obviously he's in form. He's got his game. He's playing well. He's feeling good. Hey, let's go to Memorial and play some good golf. It's like it kind of hits you like Friday night. Like all the adrenaline kind of wears out, and these guys tend to hit the wall for the weekend. So for a full tournament, maybe not. For a round 1, I don't mind Griffin, but I do like Lowry this week a lot. So, I'd probably just stay away either way.
All right, Joey B, if you're in the chat, he's kind of talking about what happened with JJ Spawn in terms of a misdiagnosis, which clearly would have affected him. So keep an eye on that if you want more news or just kind of Google that situation. But yeah, I think I might have been convinced through our. I know Jason, you're not, but I think I might have been convinced on JJ Spawn to do something in this tournament. All right, I think that's all the questions. Josh, do you mind jumping in here before we leave? Because I wouldn't mind hearing who you think is going to win. Like you can say Scotty if you want, but even if you think it's Scotty, who's the runner-up? Who would you bet in, like, hypothetically in the without Scotty Scheffler market?
I did my homework this week, so I have different answers. Last week you just asked me who's going to win, and I said Scotty Scheffler. I would not be fading Scotty Scheffler this week, but I'm actually going Xander. 16-1. I hear a lot about Xander not really having it. Last week he finished T28. That's his worst finish since the Players, which was his 3rd event of the year and only 2nd since the Century, which then he went on, 6 weeks without playing after the Century. Smoked the ball off the tee last at the PGA, which is kind of what we've been waiting for with Xander, is for that to really come back. And it's now 3 of the last 4 weeks he's gained with the driver. I'm a big fan of that. And he plays really, really well here. He's going to win at some point soon, I think. It could be at Oakmont. I would not be surprised at all if it is here. So I like Xander 16-1. I also think it's a little ridiculous that he's on the same level from an outright perspective as Cantlay and Justin Thomas, who still hasn't shown that he can hit driver well enough on a big golf course, even though he won at the Heritage. So I like Xander a lot. 16. It's like 13-1 without Scotty.
Jason, it goes back to the question we started off with. Like, who's the guy that we're going to look back and be like, why didn't everybody like Xander at 16 or 13-1 without Scotty? I mean, the metrics kind of speak for themselves. We're waiting for the game to come back in certain areas. The short game appears to be back, but that's very good news. Usually after a long layoff, that's kind of like the last thing that comes. But it was the driver that was really affecting him, at the players, specifically at the Valspar, at the RBC Heritage. He gained 5.58 strokes just off the tee at the PGA Championship. And again, 3 out of 4, like Josh said, and he's been an absolute monster on approach outside of the PGA Championship where he happened to lose strokes. But it does feel like the game is back. Your final thought on Xander?
For Josh's purposes, I hope Xander goes out and wins the golf tournament this week and proves him right. For my purposes, I hope Xander goes out and plays really well, finishes 7th place, and brings some momentum to Oakmont, and I will have him at Oakmont. I'll probably have him either way, but if he kind of gets things going again this week, he might be my favorite play on the board at Oakmont.
Very interesting. I'm starting to think. Go ahead, Josh.
No, go. If you've got Xander, I got a couple other things I wanted to throw out there.
Well, I feel like I maybe should have taken Xander in the one and done instead of Colin. Like, I really don't like. I'm just not in on Colin. But I felt like playing from ahead. Let me just go with Colin. It's a big event. I could be wrong on him, but Xander, I feel like I'm more convinced that he can win this week than Colin Morikawa. Go ahead, Josh.
I like Shane Lowry all over the place, playing wherever. 25-1 in the without Scheffler, Schauffele, Morikawa, and JT market. Top 20 is at plus money. I think play him everywhere. Second in this field, tee to green, the last 36 rounds behind Scotty Scheffler. A million miles behind Scotty, but he's second on that list. And yeah, I think he's playing some really good golf. I like Lowry as well.
Lowry makes a lot of sense. Jason, I know you like him as well. Josh, anybody else that has popped to top of mind in terms of somebody you would lean on this week?
Straka, top 20 at plus money anywhere on the planet right now is disrespectful, especially in the field that has 72 or 75, however many it is. He's got to beat, 3/4 of the field to for that to hit. Rye and top 20 plus 125. I think is too good. And I like Michael Kim a little bit, plus 120 for a top 30. Beat half the field, and he flashed last week with some of the things he'd been struggling with over the last month or so.
I feel like Michael Kim is a guy, much like JT, if you're like even going to go there, that you could just target the upside and the ceiling and like maybe go top 20 at a much bigger number with Michael Kim. But I think Michael Kim is a really good look in DFS. I think he's a really interesting play that's not going to get enough attention. He's getting some attention. So it's not a true like super pivot, but off guys like Bud Cauley, I think Michael Kim makes sense.
That was Michael Kim last week. That was his first top 20 in his last 8 starts, going back to the Arnold Palmer Invitational. So the last time he was inside the top 20 before last week's 16th place finish, where he did most of the damage with driver last week, which isn't what he usually does. The approach game was decent. I don't know. Michael Kim's just probably a fade for me. I really like him. I hope he plays well, but I'm not there on him yet.
Yeah.
If the driver wasn't a flash in the pan, him gaining with the driver was synonymous with the run that he went on early this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's been pretty bad with the driver since Valspar, basically.
Yeah.
But if I'm right there with you in terms of if he doesn't drive it well, then I'm just kind of banking on a guy who's a way more well-rounded than he used to be. And if the driver is there even half to what it was last week, where he gained almost 5 strokes off the tee, top 30. I think we're to that point with Michael Kim where he's well-rounded enough that if he's driving it pretty well, then he's going to be in contention for that one.
We also don't exactly know because that stretch of lack of top 20s, he was a WD at the Truist. I don't know. Was it a neck strain or something that was going on with him with his neck, or maybe it was his back? I can't remember. He was vocal about it on Twitter, but I just don't know what that spilled over to in terms of how much that affected him. And there were a few tournaments in a row where he was like pretty bad with the putter, and I think that affected him too. He did bounce back last week at the Charles Schwab, and has generally been a great putter outside of a 3 tournament stretch. So let's see if he can put it all together. All right. I think we tried to put it all together for you. Thank you, everybody. Jeff Stenberg in the chat. He says, I'm tailing all of Josh's bets. He's a smart guy. Go ahead, Josh. Did you have something?
Last thing is that JT is plus 320 to beat Scotty Scheffler in a matchup. I'm not endorsing it, but Justin Thomas is 5th in the data golf rankings right now. 5th, like top 5 in the world by those metrics. That doesn't happen very often that you get plus 320. Yes, it's Scotty. It is not a pick. It is not a play I would make, but the idea of JT being less likely to beat Scotty than Scotty is to win the tournament, I think that's pretty entertaining.
That's a tournament matchup, right? As opposed to round 1.
Correct. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it. We went pretty long here. Thanks for joining us. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you're subscribed to it and make sure you subscribe to the SportsLine YouTube channel. Next time you see us for the early wedge, I guess it'll be the live chat on Sunday. And we'll have a group there to handle that. And we're going to just be taking you through the final round, some bets to consider. And most likely we'll be previewing next week's tournament as well. But for now, we're going to get out of here. On behalf of Jason Sobel, Josh Mullenix, and myself, Sia and Nejad, we'll see you next time on the Early Wedge.